Rain slapped against the diner's windows as I tied my red apron for the third time that night. The string had frayed at the edge, just like everything else in my life. The neon sign outside flickered open 24 hours, but it might as well have said stuck forever. I had been a waitress at Harbor Dine for almost 2 years, longer than I planned, shorter than I deserved. I was supposed to finish my degree, supposed to get out of this town. But when my father's heart gave out and the bills came in like a flood, supposed to turned into have to. That night the corner booth was full, as usual. 4 men in suits, trust fund kids who thought working class people were background noise. They came every Friday, loud, drunk, and proud of it. "Hey, sweetheart," one of them said as I walked by, his voice dripping arrogance. "Bring us another round. And smile this time. You'll get better tips if you look grateful." The table erupted with laughter. I forced a polite grin, turned on my heel, and walked to the counter. Behind my calm face, my pulse burned. At the register, old Mrs. Hollis, who owned the diner, whispered, "Don't let them get to you, Maya." I nodded, pretending her words could shield me. They couldn't. When I returned with their drinks, the leader of the pack, Jake, snapped his fingers. "You know, Maya, I saw you at the community college once. You dropped out, right? Guess we all end up where we belong." Another burst of laughter. I placed the tray down carefully, pretending his words didn't pierce. "Enjoy your drinks," I said, steady. "Sure thing," he smirked. "Maybe one day you'll make it past waitress. Or maybe not." I walked away before my anger showed. People like him fed on reactions. Behind the counter, my phone buzzed. A message from Studio 19. "Audition tomorrow, City Finals Round 3. My stomach twisted. I had almost forgotten. The last time I auditioned, they told me I had potential, if only I believed it. Since then, every extra dollar had gone to dance classes, every free hour to practice in the storage room after closing. Nobody knew. Not even Mrs. Hollis. Tomorrow could change everything. Closing time came slowly. The men left a $1 tip, 4 people, $1, and a note scribbled on the napkin. "Dream smaller, sweetheart." I crumpled it and threw it away, but the words stuck. When the lights dimmed, I rolled up the mats, locked the door, and moved the tables to clear a space. My reflection in the dark window looked tired but alive. I pressed play on my phone. Music filled the diner, soft jazz turning to rhythm and beat. I moved barefoot, the cold tiles grounding me as I danced. My body knew the steps better than my mind. For 3 minutes, I wasn't a waitress. I was the girl I used to be, graceful, limitless, certain. When the song ended, I stood breathless, smiling at my reflection. "Tomorrow," I whispered, "they'll see." I didn't know how true that would be. Because the next day, those same men would be sitting in the front row of a charity gala, laughing again, when the curtain lifted, and I would walk onto that stage not as their waitress, but as the headlining performer of the night. And when the spotlight hit, they'd finally see who I really was. The next morning I woke before the alarm. My feet still ached from the night shift, but adrenaline drowned out the pain. I pulled on a plain hoodie, tied my hair back, and stared at my reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror. The same face they laughed at last night looked different in daylight. Tired, yes, but steady. The city was already awake when I reached Studio 19. Dancers warmed up in mirrored rooms, laughter echoing off polished floors. I tightened the ribbons on my shoes, heart pounding. This was the 3rd round. If I passed, I'd perform at the annual Metropolitan Charity Gala. The same gala that filled newspapers every year. The same gala where they were donors. The judges sat behind a long table. "Name?" one asked. "Maya Lopez." "Peace. Rise." Original choreography. Music began, soft piano first, then drums. I closed my eyes and let every insult, every late shift, every fake smile pour out through movement. My body remembered every hour spent balancing trays and dodging arrogance. Now every step rewrote it. When it ended, the room was silent for a moment. Then the middle judge, a woman in a dark blazer, leaned forward. "You move like someone with something to prove." I smiled through my tears. I guess I do. By the time I reached the diner that evening, I'd almost convinced myself I'd imagined it. But when I unlocked my locker, a crisp envelope slipped out. Congratulations! You're performing at the Metropolitan Charity Gala. Studio 19. I pressed it to my chest, dizzy with disbelief. Mrs. Hollis caught me grinning by the coffee machine. Good news. I nodded, trembling. The best. Then go show them who you are, she said. The diner will still be here when you come back. 2 weeks later, the gala night arrived. The city glittered beneath chandeliers and camera flashes. I waited backstage in a flowing silver dress borrowed from the studio wardrobe, my name printed on the program beside professional artists and sponsors. Through the curtain, I could hear laughter, familiar laughter. Jake and his friends. Of course they were here. Their families funded half the city's charities. Part of me wanted to run, but another part, the stronger one, stayed still. A stagehand whispered, "You're next." The curtain rose to polite applause for the previous act. My hands shook as I stepped into position. The spotlight felt like fire on my skin, but when the first note played, everything else disappeared. This wasn't the diner. This was the world I'd built when nobody was watching. I spun, leapt, poured years of frustration into movement until it wasn't frustration anymore, it was power. The crowd quieted, even laughter stopped. When the final note hit, I froze mid-turn, chest heaving. Silence. Then thunder. Applause crashed like a wave. People stood. Flashbulbs burst. From the stage, I saw their faces. Jake, his friends, mouth slightly open, confusion melting into disbelief. The girl who once cleaned their spilled drinks was now commanding the entire room. After the show, reporters swarmed the backstage hallway. One asked, "Maya, what inspired your performance?" I smiled. The people who underestimated me. An hour later, as guests mingled near the bar, I passed by their group. Jake turned, recognition finally complete. "Maya," he said, voice unsteady. "Evening, gentlemen," I replied, calm, graceful. He tried to recover his arrogance. "Wow. You really surprised us." "I know," I said softly. "You didn't expect the waitress to own the stage." His friends shifted awkwardly. One tried to joke, "Guess we'll have to tip better next time." I smiled politely. "You couldn't afford it." And I walked away. Behind me, I heard their laughter die in their throats. For the first time, it didn't hurt. It sounded small. The days after the gala felt unreal. Videos of my performance went viral overnight. Hashtags, interviews, morning shows. Waitress turned star. That's what the headlines called me. People who never saw me suddenly couldn't stop talking. The same faces that once looked through me now stopped me for photos. Strangers said my story gave them hope. But behind every compliment, I still heard their laughter, not out of pain anymore, but as proof of how far I'd come. Studio 19 signed me for a full-time position as a dance instructor and lead performer for their city program. I moved out of my small apartment above the diner and into a place that didn't smell like fryer oil and coffee. Still, sometimes at night, I'd find myself staring at my old apron hanging in the closet, a quiet reminder of where I began. Then came the invitation that changed everything. "Dear Ms. Lopez, we would be honored if you would lead choreography for the annual Blake Foundation Gala, supporting underprivileged youth in arts and education." My breath caught. Blake Foundation. The same family that owned half the city's businesses. Jake's family. I almost laughed. The irony was too perfect. The gala preparations began 3 weeks later at the downtown Civic Hall. I walked in with a clipboard and a headset, managing dozens of performers and stagehands. My team trusted me. My decisions carried weight. Halfway through rehearsal, a familiar voice echoed across the stage. "Excuse me, are you the director here?" I turned slowly. Jake Blake stood in the doorway, holding a tablet, dressed in casual business wear, but the arrogance had faded from his eyes. He froze when he saw me. "You're Maya Lopez." "I am." "You're the choreographer?" Head choreographer, I corrected. He rubbed the back of his neck, visibly thrown. Wow. Small world. I smiled slightly. Smaller than you think. He tried to recover with charm. Look, about the other night. I cut him off. Don't. It's fine. No, really. I was out of line. It's fine, I repeated. You were exactly who you were supposed to be. I needed that. His words stumbled. You needed that? Yes, I said simply. Because without people like you, I wouldn't have learned how to stand without permission. He looked down, silent. You've changed. No, I said. I just stopped apologizing. Over the next week, Jake attended meetings as the Foundation's liaison. We worked side by side, him taking notes, me leading. Sometimes I caught him glancing at me, maybe trying to find the girl he'd mocked. She wasn't there anymore. During the final rehearsal, one of the stage managers called out, "We're missing volunteers for the opening lineup." Jake stepped forward before anyone else. I'll help. The old version of him would never have done that. As we rehearsed, he missed a few cues, tripped once, laughed at himself instead of others. I caught myself almost smiling. Not forgiveness, just recognition that even arrogance can learn. The night of the Blake Gala arrived. The same chandeliers, the same luxury, but this time I wasn't behind a counter. I was in control. The audience rose as the curtain opened to reveal our performers, children and teens dancing to the rhythm I had built. Each move told a story of resilience. The room was silent, spellbound. When it ended, applause thundered. Donors stood. Cameras flashed. The Foundation's chairwoman, Jake's mother, walked on stage. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, "please join me in thanking the brilliant woman who made tonight possible, Ms. Maya Lopez." The spotlight hit me. Jake stood off to the side, clapping harder than anyone. Our eyes met, and this time, the look wasn't mockery. It was respect. After the event, he approached quietly. "You know," he said, "you could have ruined me that night at the diner. Posted the video, embarrassed me publicly." I looked at him. Revenge doesn't build anything. It just burns both sides. He nodded slowly. I learned that the hard way. I picked up my bag and turned to leave. "Good," I said softly. "Maybe you'll teach someone else the same lesson." As I walked out under the same rain that once made the diner windows shiver, I realized something. I hadn't just proven them wrong. I'd rewritten the ending. 2 months after the Blake Foundation Gala, my life had turned into something I used to watch happen to other people. Studio 19 booked a national tour. My classes were full. Local news called me the girl who danced her way out of survival. But success doesn't erase memory. Every time I passed Harbor Dine on my morning run, I still felt the echo of plates clattering, laughter biting into my pride. The lights inside had dimmed. Business was slower now. One Sunday, I stopped. The windows were fogged, the old neon open 24 hours still flickering, fighting to stay alive. I pushed the door open. The bell above it rang exactly the same way it used to when I carried trays instead of trophies. Mrs. Hollis looked up from the counter, her gray hair tied in a bun. "Maya? My God, honey, it's really you." I smiled. "I promised I'd come back." She hurried around the counter and hugged me tight. "The whole town's been talking about you. You made us proud." I looked around. The diner smelled like coffee and rain. The same cracked booth, the same jukebox humming faintly. "Feels smaller," I said. "You got bigger," she replied. I slid into the corner booth, the one where Jake and his friends used to sit. The leather was still torn. Mrs. Hollis poured coffee without asking. "You sure you want that table?" I nodded. "Yeah. It's where the story started." A couple walked in and sat at the counter. They whispered when they recognized me. The waitress on shift, a new girl, maybe 19, kept stealing glances. "You're Maya Lopez, right?" she asked shyly. "I am. I saw your performance online. I dance too, but my parents think it's just a hobby." I smiled. Then dance until they stop calling it that. She laughed softly. I wish I could be brave like you. I stirred my coffee. You already are. You showed up. The door jingled again. I didn't look up until I heard the voice. Maya? Jake Blake stood there, hands in his coat pockets, looking unsure for the first time since I'd known him. He approached the booth slowly. Didn't expect to find you here. I could say the same, I said. He gestured to the seat. May I? I nodded once. He sat, glancing around. I heard the diner might close. Thought maybe I could help Mrs. Hollis with funding. Least I can do. That surprised me. That's generous. He smiled faintly. Maybe guilt's expensive. We sat in silence for a moment. The jukebox changed tracks. Old Ella Fitzgerald, soft and timeless. I wanted to tell you something, he said finally. After the gala, my father said it was the first event in years that actually meant something. He donated double. Because of you. I didn't know what to say. That's good. For the kids. He nodded. For everyone. Including me. He reached into his jacket and slid a folded note across the table. Consider this overdue. I unfolded it. A simple sentence in messy handwriting. Dream smaller, sweetheart. And beneath it, written now in pen. You didn't. Thank you for proving me wrong. I looked at him. You kept this? He shrugged. Some mistakes deserve to be carried until they're corrected. I placed it on the table between us. Then we're even. He stood to leave, hesitating. You ever think about what's next? I smiled. Always. He nodded once. Good. Keep building whatever world you want. You've earned it. When he walked out, the bell chimed again. Soft, final, like the end of a chapter that didn't need rewriting anymore. Mrs. Hollis refilled my cup. You okay? I exhaled slowly. Better than okay. She grinned. Then promise me one thing. Don't forget where you learned to stand. I looked around, the counter, the smell of coffee, the hum of the rain outside. I won't, I said. But I think it's time someone else takes this seat. I left a thick envelope under my cup, donation papers and a check for the diner's renovation fund. Then I walked out into the drizzle, the same way I once had after being mocked, only this time I wasn't running from anything. I was walking toward everything I'd built. A month after that night at the diner, my life came full circle again. This time, in front of cameras instead of customers. Studio 19 had partnered with the Blake Foundation to launch a citywide program for underprivileged kids, Dance to Dream. And they wanted me to lead it. The press conference lights were harsh, the questions endless, but I'd learned how to stand still under brightness. One reporter asked, Maya, what does success mean to you now? I smiled, thinking of the smell of burnt coffee, the sound of laughter from a corner booth, the sting that had once made me shrink. Success, I said, isn't about proving people wrong. It's about remembering who you were before they told you who you couldn't be. The crowd applauded, cameras flashing like applause in light. Somewhere in the back, I thought I saw Mrs. Hollis wiping her eyes. After the conference, I stepped outside. The city shimmered beneath soft rain, the same kind of rain that once blurred the diner windows. But now, instead of washing away dreams, it felt like it was watering them. Jake had joined the foundation board officially. He'd kept his promise to support the diner. It reopened a week ago with a new sign, Harbor Dine, home of second chances. Sometimes redemption is just another form of apology that finally grows roots. That evening, I recorded a short segment for the foundation's campaign. The director said, just speak from the heart, Maya. Tell your story. The camera light blinked red. I looked straight into the lens. Studio microphone, voiceover, B-roll sequence. I used to think dignity was something people gave you, through respect, through fairness. But dignity isn't handed out. It's built quietly, one shift at a time, when nobody's watching. Cuts of footage rolled. The empty diner at night, lights humming. Maya dancing barefoot on the tiles. Her silver dress catching the spotlight at the gala. Studio microphone, voiceover. They mocked my uniform. They laughed at my shoes. But every insult stitched another thread into the woman I was becoming. Because sometimes, the world will try to define you by the job you have, not the dreams you carry. And that's their mistake. Flashback clips. Jake's laughter at the booth, the crumpled napkin, the lonely practice sessions. Studio microphone, voiceover. I learned that revenge doesn't heal. Respect does. And the sweetest revenge is turning pain into purpose so completely that no one recognizes it anymore. Footage. Smiling students, kids dancing, Mrs. Hollis watching from the corner. Studio microphone, voiceover, final lines. So if you're standing where I once stood, tired, overlooked, waiting for someone to notice, remember this. You don't need their approval to rise. You just need the courage to begin. The red light on the camera dimmed. Silence filled the studio, the kind that feels like applause before it starts. Later that night, I walked past Haberdine again. The new sign glowed softly through the drizzle. Inside, the young waitress, the same girl who once told me she wished she were brave, was dancing between tables while mopping the floor, laughing without fear. Mrs. Hollis noticed me at the window and waved. I waved back and kept walking. At the corner, I paused, looking down at my reflection in a puddle. The woman staring back wasn't the waitress they mocked. She was everything that laughter couldn't kill. I slipped my hands into my coat pockets and whispered to the rain. They laughed at my waitress job, until they saw who I really was. And the rain answered softly against the pavement, as if agreeing that sometimes, the loudest revenge is peace.